Have you ever felt the frustration of watching a perfect plan fall apart? Maybe you've experienced that sinking feeling when, despite your best intentions and careful planning, your goals seem to slip further and further away. If you're nodding your head right now, you're not alone. Every day, across the world, brilliant strategies fail, not because they're bad strategies, but because of something far more fundamental, the challenge of execution. I'm here to share with you a revolutionary framework that has transformed how organizations and individuals turn their most important goals into reality. Welcome to the 4 disciplines of execution. Over the next few hours, we'll explore a methodology that has helped thousands of teams achieve breakthrough results. Let me tell you about the minds behind this groundbreaking work. Covey, Chris McChesney, and Jim Huling didn't just write a book, they documented decades of real-world experience. Their journey began in the trenches of corporate America, where they witnessed firsthand the daily struggles organizations face. Covey, following in the footsteps of his father Stephen Covey, brought deep insights into human behavior and organizational dynamics. Chris McChesney contributed his extensive experience in operational excellence, while Jim Huling added his practical knowledge from leading successful business transformations. What they discovered was both surprising and profound. The primary obstacle to executing your most important goals isn't lack of commitment or capability. It's something they called the whirlwind. Imagine starting your day with clear intentions to work on that important strategic project. Your morning begins with optimism and determination. Then the emails start flooding in, a client calls with an urgent problem. Your team needs immediate guidance on an operational issue. Before you know it, it's 5 p.m., and despite being incredibly busy, you've made zero progress on what matters most. This is the whirlwind, the powerful force of urgent daily activities that consume your time, energy, and attention. It's not just a distraction, it's the necessary work that keeps your business running. But here's the crucial insight: the whirlwind is always stronger than your initiatives for change. Always. Think about your own experience. How many times have you started an important initiative with enthusiasm, only to see it gradually fade as daily urgencies took over? The cost of this pattern is staggering. Organizations waste countless resources on initiatives that never materialize. Talented employees become discouraged when they see important projects consistently fall by the wayside. Market opportunities slip away to more agile competitors. But perhaps most damaging is the creeping cynicism that develops when people see pattern after pattern of failed execution. The first discipline: focus on the wildly important. Now, let's talk about our first powerful tool to overcome the whirlwind: focusing on what's wildly important. I want to share a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. A few years ago, I worked with a manufacturing company that was struggling with too many priorities. Their leadership team had a list of 15 critical initiatives they were trying to pursue simultaneously. When I asked how many were succeeding, they looked at each other uncomfortably. The answer: none. This is a common scenario I see in organizations worldwide. We think that by pursuing everything, we'll achieve more. But here's the fascinating truth about how our minds work: we're simply not wired to focus effectively on multiple things at once. Let me share an experiment that demonstrates this. Researchers found that when people focused on just 2 goals, they succeeded about 85% of the time. Pretty impressive, right? But here's where it gets interesting. When they added a 3rd goal, success dropped to 65%. A 4th goal, success plummeted to below 30%. Add more goals, and the success rate approaches 0. This research reveals something profound about human nature. The more we try to focus on, the less we actually accomplish. It's like trying to shine a flashlight on everything in a dark room. You end up illuminating nothing clearly. But when you focus that same light on one specific area, suddenly you can see every detail. So, what makes a goal wildly important? Let me give you an example that brings this to life. I worked with a retail chain that was struggling with customer satisfaction. Instead of saying vaguely we need to improve customer satisfaction, they created what we call a wildly important goal, or WIG. We will increase our customer satisfaction scores from 7.1 to 8.5 by December 31st. Notice the difference. It's specific, measurable, and time-bound. Creating your WIG is like planning a journey. You need 3 things: where you're starting from, where you want to go, and when you want to get there. Think about planning a road trip. You wouldn't just say, I want to go west. You'd say, I'm driving from New York to Los Angeles, and I need to arrive by next Friday. That's the level of clarity your WIG needs. But here's where many teams go wrong. They try to turn every important goal into a WIG. Remember, wildly important doesn't mean really important. It means this goal is so important that all your other goals won't matter if you don't achieve it. Let me share another real example that illustrates this perfectly. I worked with a hospital that was struggling with patient satisfaction, cost control, and staff turnover, all important issues. But when we dug deeper, we discovered that their emergency room wait times were driving all these problems. Long wait times were frustrating patients, causing staff burnout, and leading to inefficient resource use. By focusing on one wildly important goal, reducing average wait times from 55 minutes to 25 minutes in 6 months, they actually began improving all 3 areas. Discipline 2. Act on lead measures. Now, let's dive into what might be the most game-changing concept in execution: the difference between lead and lag measures. I love explaining this through a simple example we can all relate to: losing weight. When you step on the scale, that number you see, that's a leg measure. It tells you what has already happened. You can't directly control that number in the moment. But what you can control are lead measures, what you eat and how much you exercise today. Think of it this way: leg measures are like the score in a game, while lead measures are like the plays you run to influence that score. You can't change the scoreboard directly, you can only change it through the actions you take during the game. Let me share a story that brings this to life. I worked with a sales team that was consistently missing their revenue targets. Every month, they'd anxiously watch their sales numbers, their leg measure, hoping they'd somehow improve. It was like watching the scoreboard and hoping the score would magically change. Everything transformed when we helped them identify their lead measures. Instead of obsessing over monthly revenue, they focused on 3 specific behaviors they could control. First, the number of face-to-face meetings with qualified prospects each week. Second, the number of customized proposals delivered. And third, the speed of follow-up on any customer questions. These were all things they could influence directly, and more importantly, they were predictive of sales success. Within 3 months, something remarkable happened. Not only did their sales numbers improve dramatically, but team morale soared. Why? Because now they had daily wins they could celebrate. They weren't waiting until the end of the month to know if they were succeeding. They could see their progress every single day. Discipline 3. Keep a compelling scoreboard. Have you ever noticed how different people play when they're keeping score? Whether it's a friendly game of golf or a professional sports match, something changes when people can see the score. This brings us to our 3rd discipline, and it's about much more than just tracking numbers. Let me tell you about an interesting situation I encountered at a manufacturing plant. The company had plenty of data, detailed reports, analytics, and dashboards that tracked every aspect of production. But here's the problem: none of it meant anything to the workers on the factory floor. It was like trying to play basketball with a scoreboard written in a foreign language. Together, we created what we call a compelling scoreboard. Not a complex management report. A simple, visible tracker that showed to things their current defect rate, their leg measure, and their equipment maintenance completion rate, their lead measure. We placed large, clear displays right on the factory floor where everyone could see them. The impact was immediate and powerful. Suddenly, everyone could see, at a glance, whether they were winning or losing. The numbers became real. Workers started having conversations about how to improve their maintenance rates. They began celebrating when defect rates dropped. The scoreboard had turned their work into a winnable game. But here's the key insight about scoreboards: they need to be designed for the players, not the coaches. Too often, organizations create complicated tracking systems that serve management's needs but don't engage the team. A compelling scoreboard should tell you 3 things at a glance. Are we winning? What's the target? And is our lead measure moving in the right direction? Discipline 4. Create a cadence of accountability. Now we come to the discipline that brings everything together, creating a rhythm of accountability. This isn't about harsh oversight or micromanagement. It's about creating a pattern of regular, focused commitments that drive progress. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this. I worked with a software development team that was consistently missing project deadlines. They had a clear WIG completing a major software update by a specific date, solid lead measures, daily code commits and test completion rates, and a visible scoreboard. But something was still missing. The game changer came when we instituted what we call WIG sessions, weekly meetings with a very specific format. These weren't your typical status meetings. They lasted exactly 20 minutes and focused on one simple question: what are the 1 or 2 things you can do this week that will have the biggest impact on our scoreboard? Each team member would make a specific commitment for the week ahead. Not vague promises like "I'll work on the database," but precise commitments like "I'll complete the user authentication module by Friday." The next week, they'd start by reporting on their commitments from the previous week before making new ones. This created what we call a cadence of accountability, a rhythm of making and keeping commitments to move the lead measures. It's like a heartbeat that keeps execution alive and moving forward. Implementation and case studies. Let me share 3 powerful stories of organizations that successfully implemented the 4 disciplines of execution and, more importantly, what we can learn from their experiences. First, there's the story of a national retail chain that was struggling with customer satisfaction. Their WIG was clear: increase customer satisfaction scores from 7.2 to 8.5 in 12 months. Their lead measures focused on customer interaction, greeting customers within 30 seconds of entering the store, resolving customer issues on the first attempt, and maintaining stock levels of key items. They created simple scoreboards in each store's break room showing weekly progress on these measures. The results were remarkable. Not only did they exceed their customer satisfaction goal, reaching 8.7, but employee turnover dropped by 40% and sales increased by 15%. The key lesson: when employees can see the direct connection between their actions and results, engagement soars. Our second story comes from a manufacturing plant facing quality control issues. Their WIG was to reduce defect rates from 3.2% to 1% in 6 months. They focused on lead measures of preventive maintenance completion, quality check frequency, and employee training hours. Their scoreboard tracked these measures daily, visible to everyone on the production floor. The results: they reached their goal 2 months early, achieving a defect rate of 0.8%. This translated into $2.3 million in cost savings. The crucial insight here was that by focusing on preventive actions, lead measures, rather than just tracking defects, lag measures, they could actually get ahead of quality issues. Finally, let's look at a healthcare success story. A regional hospital was struggling with emergency room wait times. Their WIG was to reduce average wait times from 45 to 25 minutes. Their lead measures included triage completion time, staff response time, and resource availability checks. They created hourly updated scoreboards in the department and held quick stand-up meetings at every shift change to review progress and make new commitments. Within 4 months, they had reduced wait times to 20 minutes, improved patient satisfaction by 45%, and increased staff engagement by 35%. Conclusion: as we wrap up our journey through the 4 disciplines of execution, let's reflect on the key insights we've explored. The path to achieving your wildly important goals isn't about working harder, it's about working differently. It's about focusing intensely on what matters most, identifying the leverage points that drive success, keeping score in a way that engages everyone, and creating a rhythm of accountability that sustains progress. Remember, the whirlwind will always be there. Your day-to-day operations will always demand attention. But by applying these 4 disciplines, you can achieve breakthrough results even in the midst of your busiest times. Think about your own situation right now. What's your wildly important goal? What lead measures could you track to drive progress? How could you keep score in a way that engages your team? And what rhythm of accountability would ensure consistent execution? The 4 disciplines of execution isn't just another management theory, it's a proven formula for turning your most important goals into reality. Whether you're leading a large organization, managing a small team, or working on personal goals, these disciplines can help you move from knowing what to do to actually doing it. Start small. Pick one wildly important goal. Identify your lead measures. Create a simple scoreboard. Set up a weekly accountability session. Then watch as the momentum builds and results begin to flow. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the 4 disciplines of execution. Remember, execution isn't about what you know, it's about what you do. Now it's time to put these disciplines into action in your own world.